Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our presentation of Family and Consumer Sciences at Home. We are working this morning with three different of our extension specialists, and we are really happy to have Dr. Courtney Luking, Dr. Amy Kostelik, and Dr. Heather Norman Bergdorf joining us and presenting our topic, which is supporting your immune system with Pantry Staples. So I'm going to turn it over to Amy.
Great. Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see everybody and connect via Zoom. I think we're all kind of getting used to this now. Actually, I was with a friend last night. Their cat passed away, so we went over and serenaded them outside their house and brought some champagne to celebrate the life of a long-lived, wonderful cat. And he started to say, I'm so used to Zoom that I don't know if I want to go back to the way it was. Mindy also made a comment about that this morning, to which I said, no, I'm ready to go back to the way it was and not keep doing Zoom meetings. But we're happy to be here, and we're happy to be here together with the three of us presenting something a little bit different for us too. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Amy Kostelik, and I am the Extension Specialist for Adult Development and Aging, and I'm pleased to be here and presenting with Heather Norman Bergdorf and Courtney Luking, who are both professors in the Department of Dietetics and Human Nutrition. And they're going to talk here in a little bit, but since I'm giving the intro part of this talk, I'm going to go ahead and just brag on Dr. Norman Bergdorf. She specializes in nutrition and chronic disease, whereas Dr. Luking specializes in healthy lifestyle and intervention. And so the three of us thought we wanted to get together today to be able to talk about ways in which we can avoid infection, but also support our immune system, and in particularly supporting the immune system through foods that Dr. Norman Bergdorf and Luking have shared are good foods to have in our cabinets and cupboards right now during this pandemic. So that's going to be our focus today, but I'm going to start us off, and Heather, if you flip to the next slide for me, let's talking about something that you've heard a lot every day probably on, people who are at risk for COVID-19. And there's a reason we're going to do this, because we're going to segue again into the immune system and how the immune system works as our bodyguard, and then how we can help to protect it and support it. So just as a reminder, people of all ages, and I think this is particularly important to remember right now, that people of all ages, but especially those with underlying medical conditions, are at higher risk for COVID-19. And especially the medical conditions that are not well controlled. So specifically, those individuals are going to include, as the slide shows, people who are 65 and older, although there are some medical professionals who are reporting that increased risk actually begins around the age of 50 and will keep going up with age. And the highest risk of serious illness and death is for people who are 80 years old and older, people who are living in long-term care facilities and nursing homes, and older adults with chronic disease in particular. There's also people at risk who are living with lung diseases, and that's going to include moderate to severe asthma, people with obstructive pulmonary disease, that's COPD, people with emphysema, people who smoke, people with heart and blood vessel disease. And so this is going to include people even with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, people who have serious heart conditions, people who have a history of heart attack and stroke, heart valve disease. And then there's the other people with immunocompromised issues, and that's going to include people who are undergoing cancer treatments, people being treated for HIV and AIDS, people with bone marrow and organ transplants, different autoimmune conditions, all types of diabetes, chronic kidney disease, chronic liver disease, and even obesity. And so we just want to highlight again that people, older adults, and people with chronic conditions and disease, especially those that are not well controlled, are at risk for COVID-19. But part of the reason that this talk started, and if we flip forward to the next slide, is this. Some people who are 65 and older and are healthy may wonder, why do I have to worry if I'm healthy? And this sort of started, I'm going to pick on my mom for a second. She is in her mid to late 70s. She's healthy, isn't even on medication. And when the pandemic first started, she was talking to me about this. But maybe, Amy, I don't need to worry about going to the store because I'm healthy. And I said to her, but you do, because even though you're healthy, your immune system just isn't working like it used to, just based on age alone. And I think about that, and I've given this comparison or analogy before. I was a softball player all through college, and I used to take really good care of my softball glove. I loved my glove. And so those of you who play might, recognize that you oil it and you put your ball in it and you wrap it and you keep it inside and you do all these things to preserve that glove. But over time, it just won't last forever. That leather isn't going to last forever. And our bodies are kind of like that too. So I sort of explained that to my mom to say, your immune system is kind of like my old softball glove that doesn't look so hot right now. And because of that, that's why she's got to be careful about going to the store, regardless of how healthy she is as an older adult. Because the fact of the matter is that due to natural aging, that you have a naturally weakened immune system. Again, that's associated with normal aging. And then again, if you go back to that previous slide, you've got people with these compromised immune systems as well. And so those are the people that we're really trying to protect. And when we talk about avoiding infection and trying to support our immune system to help prevent and fight this disease. So I want to talk just a minute about the immune system in general. And so I love this picture. I think Heather told me about it. It might have been from the Game of Thrones. But I like it. I don't know if it is or not. But I like it because I think of our immune system as our bodyguard. In that our immune system makes cells and it makes antibodies that get rid of infectious agents such as bacteria, virus like the COVID-19 sort of, and other invaders that aren't supposed to be in the body. And this actually starts when we're babies. So we're born with a certain level of immunity that's related to maternal antibodies that were transmitted to us in utero and through mother's breast milk. And over time, our system grows stronger and it creates a store of these antibodies, and the store starts to build as we're introduced to more viruses and more illnesses and toxins. And so we create a memory bank almost of these antibodies so that we know, oh, this is invading our body. This is what we need to do. We've got to fight that off. And even vaccines help us do that as well. Vaccines help stimulate the immune system because they contribute to that bank of antibodies by introducing us to small amounts of a virus so that our body can make the proper antibodies to be able to fight ourselves or to be able to protect ourselves when we actually come into that virus in real lifetime. But again, over time, or because of disease or illnesses, our bodies become a little bit more vulnerable to infection and to getting sick as we get older. So let's fast forward now to this COVID-19. It's on the next slide. There we go, thanks. And that is, we've got this, what we're calling now this novel virus. You've heard everyone call it the COVID-19 novel virus. And that means it's a new virus to which people have not previously been exposed, and therefore we don't have immunity to it. So that in general makes it harder for anybody to fight. And so we recognize, and scientists are recognizing, that nearly everyone's going to be exposed to this virus at some point, but not all people are going to be developing a serious reaction or illness or life-threatening illness to it. But again, like any illness that affects older adults or people with compromised systems, they're going to have more trouble fighting something like this, especially a new virus like the COVID-19. And so they become infected, which leaves them more susceptible to additional complications like pneumonia, for example, and that makes it even more difficult for folks to recover. So again, this virus in particular becomes scary because right now, even though we're working at the vaccine, we still don't 100% have the vaccine. It spreads from person to person, and people who are asymptomatic, we know, are also spreading it. So there's a couple things that we know we can do, more than a couple things that we know we can take control to avoid infection and support your immune system. And so those things I'm going to remind you, even though you've heard these 1,000 times, but I think you can hear them 1,000 more times because they're always good reminders. And that is to social distance and stay at home. It's washing your hands. Before this this Zoom presentation webinar was playing, we had the podcast going of how do you wash your hands, avoiding touching your nose, your mouth, and your eyes, managing your stress, maintaining a positive attitude, spreading joy, making sure you're getting out and exercising, getting some sunshine, practicing good sleep habits is particularly important, cleaning and disinfecting surfaces, avoiding people who are sick. And then we want to talk about nutrition in particular. And so while I wish Doctors Norman Bergdorf and Luking could talk about ways in which food could cure the virus, but they are going to talk about ways in which food can help support the immune system so that if you do come into contact with COVID-19, your body is better able to help fight it and potentially lessen the symptoms or the severity of the symptoms if you do end up with the virus. So at that, I'm going to let Dr. Norman Bergdorf take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, Amy. That was seriously a perfect setup. My name is Heather Norman Bergdorf. I'm an extension specialist for nutrition and health with Family Consumer Sciences Extension. And so I wanted to show this because I feel like this is something that we've all seen and over the past month, all these headlines that are essentially kind of selling to you that we can truly just boost our immune system with, it seems like 15 or 16 foods there that have been identified that can do this, or even 5 food nutrients to supercharge your immune system. But I want to emphasize here that protecting ourselves from sickness is a lot more complicated than simply eating more of a certain food or a type of food. And so just like Amy shared with us, there are several lifestyle factors. And we know nutrition is a very important one that we can ultimately control and that it may help. And so we wanted to provide a little bit of evidence-based guidance for you all, specifically on what nutrients and foods, specifically in your pantry or your freezer, that could help support your immune system. So I want to have this first little poll. We'll have several of these so that you guys can be involved throughout this talk. But what foods do you think boost our immune system or are known for boosting our immune system? So we'll give a little bit of time so some answers can kind of trickle in here. And those who are moderating our chats, if you want to kind of share what we're seeing, that would be great on both Zoom and Facebook.
Okay, blueberries, all kinds of berries, spinach, fruits and vegetables, dark greens, citrus fruits.
Citrus, yeah. Any other? Berry.
Garlic, greens, lean meat, sweet potatoes.
Okay. Sounds good. I'm hearing some great answers out there. But if we move forward, I want to kind of talk a little bit about the difference between boosting and supporting our immune system. So Amy provided this nice overview of what the immune system does, and it's always on. It's in our bodies, and it is essentially playing defense for us, whether it be protecting us from infection or helping us heal. But we really want to focus on supporting our immune system. There are actually many harmful conditions where it's a result of our immune system that's being hyperactive or it's in overdrive. And so we really just want to support our immune system so that it is functioning properly, so that it can respond appropriately to whatever that infection may be. And so we can best do that by supporting our immune system through those everyday lifestyle choices that Amy had mentioned, whether that's washing our hands, or just getting enough sleep or getting outside, or here what we're talking about specifically is with making healthy food choices. And so I feel like a lot of times those lists that you may see really are food specific or food driven, but if we really look at how the body works, it's focusing on these specific nutrients rather than the foods. And so if we're looking for food sources that are high in these specific nutrients, I thought, well, let's take a look at our nutrition facts label. So a lot of the foods that were mentioned on the chats that are immune boosting or best support our immune system, a lot of them may not have a nutrition facts label. So you wouldn't be able to look at this information on the package. But we're actually going to show that a lot of other pantry staples that may have a nutrition facts label are high in these nutrients as well. And so I wanted to kind of walk through, how do I know if a food is high in a specific nutrient? And so what we're going to do is use the percent daily value. This is going to help us decide what foods we should try to include in our diet. And so using that percent daily value to help evaluate essentially how a particular food fits into your daily meal plan, it's based on a specific serving of that food item. And that percent daily value is giving you a percentage for your entire day. So not just one meal or a snack, but essentially those daily values are the average level of nutrients for a person who's eating around 2,000 calories a day. And so the rule of thumb that we can go by is that something that is low in a nutrient is going to be 5% or less. So we're looking at that light purple, the percent daily value. So if it's 5% or less, that is considered low for a nutrient. And then a product that is high in a specific nutrient will be 20% or more. So in this case, if we look at our nutrients, we can say calcium, for example. There's 25% of your daily value of calcium in one serving of this food. So I would say that this food is high in calcium, or an excellent source of calcium. So that's just kind of a little bit of a review for some of you. And we're going to use that percent daily value as we move forward and talk about some pantry staples that you may have in your cupboard right now that would be a good source of some of our immune supporting nutrients. Okay, so I have my next interaction here. So we have a true or false. The best source of vitamin C is an orange. What do you all think? It's kind of a little bit of a trick question.
Most of them are saying false, Heather.
Okay, great. They caught on to where I was going with this. So what I'm going to do for the next couple slides is really focus on some foods that maybe you didn't realize are good or excellent sources of nutrients for healthy immune function. So again, you'll see at the top, I have a food item, the average serving size, and the percent daily value of that specific nutrient that it provides for you. Now, I don't want to list out all of these foods, but what I do want to make is the point that you're not going to see a lot of exotic foods, okay? So exotic foods that you see on a list maybe online where it says these are going to supercharge your immune system or things like that, it doesn't always necessarily mean healthier. And so you're going to see a lot of common foods that we eat often and you just didn't realize it. And I think a lot of times food marketing can also play a part of this. So, there are lots of foods that are high in these nutrients, but they're not necessarily promoted in that way, or it's not on their food label. So I want to, over the next couple slides, just point out some common foods that can be found in Kentucky, whether it is fresh or it's in the freezer section or it's in those middle aisles of the grocery store, and try to just show you that really eating a balanced diet with a variety of foods from all the food groups is the best way that you can truly support healthy immune function. And so if we look at vitamin A first, we kind of think of these as being the orange, the yellow, the red fruits and vegetables. So we are going to focus on fruits and vegetables when we talk about vitamins A and C. So if you look at vitamin A, you can see that carrots are obviously an excellent source, which can be found in the fresh, the frozen, and the canned goods section of the grocery store, even romaine lettuce, spinach, and then sweet potatoes, which can be an economic option. And you'll notice here that a lot of these produce items are long lasting. So that's an issue that a lot of people come up against, is that they're concerned about purchasing fresh because they're going to go bad. But actually carrots are great just to keep in your refrigerator, and they'll keep for quite a while. Those sweet potatoes, and even cantaloupe, which not necessarily in season right now, so it might be a little bit expensive, but just think about this when it comes to the summer months. Spinach is also great to be purchased in the freezer section. When we look at vitamin C, it's found in so many foods you may not even realize it. And vitamin C is incredibly important when it comes to protecting us against infections and helping our body make antibodies and things like that. And if you look at this list, you always think of oranges and orange juice, which it is so true that it is a great source. But people keep making fun of me because I have told almost every person that I know over the past week that cauliflower, a healthy, helping of cauliflower actually has more vitamin C than an orange, and a lot of people find that surprising. And cauliflower is usually available in most freezer sections, even with a broccoli or cauliflower mix. So you can see there a great dose of vitamin C is going to be if you have a broccoli cauliflower bag that you can just throw in the microwave and steam. Bell peppers are an excellent source, oranges, and then again, another produce item that's going to keep longer is a potato. So even if you had one medium baked potato, it's a great source of vitamin C. When we look at our next nutrients, vitamin D and E, vitamin D is what we tend to see is that people who have lower vitamin D levels are linked to higher rates of infection. So we want to look for options that are fortified or have that vitamin D added to it. So milk is one of the things that we most often think about. You can see that there are other shelf-stable options, so like a fortified cereal that's lower in sugar, canned sardines, or even sometimes canned salmon would be a great option that would have vitamin D in them. And then don't forget that it's our sunshine vitamin. So getting outside as these warmer months approach and just practicing sun safety, that will also be important and helpful for your immune function. And then for vitamin E, it's going to help support our immune system for fighting off infections so that our immune system can respond appropriately. And then we also have some pantry items here that are shelf stable. So whether that's purchasing some almonds or sunflower seeds so that you could throw them on a salad, or even peanut butter or a nut butter, that would be a great option to be able to add a little bit of vitamin E into the diet. And then our last couple ones I want to draw your attention to are selenium and zinc. So selenium is going to help reduce inflammation and enhance our immunity. You can see that just a handful of Brazil nuts is an incredible source of selenium in the diet, but those might not be found in your local grocery store, and that's okay, because really if you look at the rest of that list, if you were trying to stock your pantry, those are some excellent things to have on hand that last a long time. So you can see here that whole grains are going to be a great source of selenium because you have brown rice, you have oatmeal, whole wheat pasta. All of them are great that are economical and also great to keep on your grocery or on your pantry shelves. And then last, zinc. We tend to think about beans and whole grains with zinc. This is going to be helpful in controlling inflammation. So you can see here that just, your average beef patty is going to be almost half your day's daily value of zinc. And then chickpeas are a great type of lean protein that can be found in the canned goods section. Might not be something that you're as familiar with, but it's fun to play around with and can be substituted for a bean, say in a soup that you're making at home or a chili, anything like that. They're also going to be good sources for you that are shelf stable. And then I kind of just want to end with these a few take-home messages before I turn it over to Dr. Courtney Luking, who's going to do a food demonstration for us, is that I don't want you to feel like you have to restrict yourself to one food or one type of food that you may see on some type of list of foods that's best to boost your immune system. We really want to focus on a variety of foods. You saw all the different types, whether that was from fruits or vegetables, the dairy group, lean protein, and whole grains specifically. All of them are going to be beneficial in helping to support your immune system. So we don't want you to feel restricted. And again, fresh, frozen, canned, along with all those other pantry staples are going to be great options to build into your meals. And this is going to help support your immune system year round. So even if something may not be in season where you live, if you can find it in the freezer or the canned good aisle, usually that's an economic way to it's a great way to invest in supporting your immune system, both with dollars and the foods you're choosing. And I will just add here, if you're concerned about a specific nutrient deficiency, that's definitely a conversation for you to have with your healthcare provider. So just keep that in mind. We want you to ask the right people if you do have a very specific question about your nutritional needs. And then finally, just to think outside the box when it comes to what an immune boosting food is. You may not even realize something is, but just trying to incorporate that variety of foods is really going to be your best bet. And it's going to be a lot more fun too when you get to eat a variety of different foods.
Heather, before you turn it over, we've gotten a question that, oh wait, my question box moved up. Can you talk about the effects of alcohol on the immune system?
Well, if we're talking to anyone, we're going to really encourage that alcohol is consumed in moderation. And what that means is no more than 2 drinks a day for men, and no more than really 1 drink per day for women. I would really focus on just staying hydrated, and, with water. That's going to be the best way to support your body, especially if you're trying to, manage a illness or sickness or fight off an infection. We just want you to stay hydrated, and water is going to be really the best choice for you. Or others may choose a milk or a plant-based milk type beverage. And if you are, I would look for beverages that are fortified to ensure that you're getting the most nutrition you can from that beverage choice.
Let me add one thing onto that, Heather, and that is, I think with those recommendations on alcohol, there are some people who kind of flip that around and think, oh, if I'm allowed as a woman 1 drink per day, but I didn't drink throughout the week, and I can save all of that alcohol for the weekend, that is not what the recommendation is. That would be considered binge drinking, and that is not a part of the alcohol 1 drink / 2 drinks per day recommendations.
Thank you for making that clarification, Amy.
My students like to point that out. That's
yeah.
what they do. And so I just thought I'll throw that out there for everybody.
That's great. Thank you. All right. So we have another true or false before I hand it over to Courtney. And based on what we've learned so far, smoothies and supplements are the best way to get immune boosting nutrients into the diet. I know everyone is going to get this correct.
They're all saying false, Heather.
Yes, they learn so quickly. All right, so Dr. Luking, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, and can you all hear me now that I'm off mute? Excellent. Well, welcome to my kitchen, everyone. My name is Courtney Luking, and I'm an extension specialist for health and nutrition, just like Dr. Heather Norman Bergdorf. And so excited to be part of this presentation today. And I am going to close us out with a mini version of a food demo. But before we get into that, I wanted to build off this last true or false. It's a common question that we get, and as Heather indicated, we're seeing it online. But I don't know about you all, but as I've been indoors a lot, we've been doing a lot of puzzles as a family. And so as I was preparing for this presentation today, it got me really thinking about how our diet is like a puzzle, and that in order to build a healthy eating pattern, we have to put together all the pieces. So if I showed you just one piece of a puzzle, you may not know what that is, right? I do, because I've done this puzzle probably 10 times already. But so a puzzle piece is like a specific food. You can think about a food, and on this puzzle piece, we see a level of visual detail. And those you can think of as like the nutrients, right? So they are building up to something a little bit bigger. But as we start to put our puzzle pieces together, anyone want to guess what this is? You recognize her?
She's starting to look really familiar.
We have Elsa from Frozen. And so as we start to piece together different foods or different pieces of the puzzle, we start to get a bigger picture. And so if we try to hone in on any specific nutrient, because we're worried about our immune system, or we're worried about our heart health, or we're worried about cancer, we're going to be missing out on the bigger picture. So we're going to talk about kind of a full package meal for you. And if you want to advance the slide, before we get to that, I wanted to talk a little bit about, and you will, hopefully you can see my face, and we will stop sharing the screen in just a minute, but I had a few points I wanted to share. I am pretty new to Kentucky, and so one of my new favorite sites, I think a lot of our extension agents, they will know about this, but for those of you who are new to extension or just joining us for this presentation today, Plated Up Kentucky Proud is a wonderful, wonderful resource. Plated Up is a partnership between our university of Kentucky Cooperative Extension and the Kentucky Department of Agriculture, as well as the University of Kentucky School of Human Environmental Sciences. And they have come up with a variety of delicious recipes that highlight foods and products from the people of Kentucky. And so this is where I went to get inspiration for what to make with you today. And the first thing I really love about this is they have a produce availability chart. We're working with Pantry Staples now, but we are getting into farmers market season, and they are coming up with social distancing appropriate measures where you can still get access to local fresh produce. So keeping that in mind as we start to get further and further into that growing season. So for right now, we're in April, we're starting to get into a variety of greens, asparagus, and lettuces. But so this is where you can start for inspiration, what's in season, or like I did, you can take a look in your pantry and see what do I have available. And I also was looking at Heather's list of foods for highlighting some of those nutrients that we know are going to support our immune system. And if you click one more time, I chose on the cheesy broccoli potatoes for multiple reasons. So if you want to click forward, we will take a quick look at the recipe, and then I'll show you what I did. Some of you may have made this recipe before, but why I thought this was a great one. One, I had most of the ingredients in my kitchen, or I had options to substitute, and we'll talk about substitutions. I also picked this because it's great. You can make it as a party of one. So if you are just feeding yourself right now, or it's a way that you can feed a crowd. And we'll talk about options for piecing together something to please a variety of palates. For anyone who's living in an intergenerational home, you may find that there are lots of different preferences in how people like to eat their foods. All right, so Heather, if you want to stop sharing your screen, then I will zoom in here. So I'm gonna put you down on my mini kitchen, high tech here, just folding the computer closed. But our recipe called for a base of potatoes. So you could use white baking potatoes. If you have sweet potatoes, those could be another option depending on how you like to mix your flavors. Those sweet potatoes will also be higher in vitamin A, but our baked potatoes will be high in vitamin C. We also had called for 2 cups of broccoli. I had access to fresh broccoli right now, so you can just chop that up. And then we had a variety of what I like to think of as flavor enhancers. So we had, the recipe calls for a little bit of bacon. I didn't have turkey bacon, so I used pork bacon. And for anyone who's less familiar in the differences, nutritionally, they are somewhat similar, except turkey bacon tends to be a little bit lower in calories. And that's generally because it's slightly lower in fat, slightly lower in protein. The sodium levels can be close, but it really is going to depend on the brand that you buy at the store. But bacon is a flavor enhancer, much to perhaps my husband's dismay, and not the main course. So a little bit can go a long way for beefing up that flavor. We also have olive oil, which is a heart-healthy option, but maybe you don't have olive oil, so you could stick with canola oil or perhaps any other vegetable oil you have in the house. And if you look at the recipe, it calls for a tablespoon, which really isn't a whole lot. So again, a little bit goes a long way in adding those flavors. You can salt and pepper to taste. And then garlic is another great flavor for you. I am kind of a lazy cook, and so I get the pre-minced option, but you can also use fresh garlic and chop or use a garlic press to get a nice mash flavoring. Garlic is actually a powerhouse of nutrients. It has a little bit of a lot of things. And so not only does it add flavor, but it's also going to provide a wonderful additional nutrients to your dish. All right, so we've talked about bacon, olive, garlic. Those are our main flavor enhancers. Chives are also called for, but I didn't have those. So what I did instead is I just chopped up a little bit of regular onion. Green onion might be a better substitute. You could also use scallions or leeks, really whatever you have on hand, or you could just leave it out. All right, so I chopped everything up, I combined it, and then I threw it in the oven, and it's magically ready for you. So let me go get it. Add a little cheese on the end. So someone had asked about cooking methods and how that impacts the vitamins and the nutrition in there. And I will tell you that cooking can increase your body's ability to absorb some nutrients. For example, beta carotene, which is a variant or a variety of vitamin A. It can also increase access to lycopene. We oftentimes think about tomatoes. So if you were to saute those tomatoes, it would make it easier for your body to gain access to lycopene. However, cooking can also decrease some of the availability of nutrients, those water soluble, so like B vitamins, vitamin C, which we've talked a lot about today. Those can be a little bit more sensitive to heat. With roasting, you will lose a little bit of nutrition, but not as much as if you were to boil broccoli, for example. So instead of boiling your broccoli, it would be great to roast, or my daughter loves microwave those frozen bags of broccoli. So you just toss them in the microwave, and it's an easy option for that. And microwaving is quick, and therefore you're going to lose the least amount of nutrients with that cooking method. So let's show you the final product here. Quick note, I like my potatoes crunchier. So roasting is, it brings out that caramelization. And again, I am a lazy cook, so anything that I can chop up and throw in the oven at once is like my idea of perfection. I was not totally on the ball this morning with timing, so I didn't get the potatoes as crunchy as I would have liked, but they are soft. And so we have, you can see here, we have our potatoes and broccoli. I put the cheese on top, so make sure the potatoes are pretty much to the point that you would like them. So whether you want them soft or crunchy, you can add a little bit of your bacon on top, and voila, you have a meal. Now, if I were to be eating this for lunch, a lot of times we think about potatoes as a side dish, right? But this is a great option to make potatoes a meal. And so you can think about, what are some ways that I can add a rainbow of color? Yes, I have a lot of training in nutrition, but I like to think very simple. And so if I have a colorful plate, that means I'm getting a variety of nutrients that are going to be good for my body, whether it's to support my immune system against this COVID virus, or it's just to have a nice healthy base, or any other health concerns that you have. So to make this a meal, I would start with a bed of spinach, also high in a lot of nutrients, and I would put my potatoes on top. I'd also consider adding black beans, another protein source high in fiber, or chickpeas. Chickpeas are another example. You could have them raw. You could also throw chickpeas in the oven with the dish and roast them for some additional flavor. But there are ways to add up your protein and fiber and make it into more of a substantial meal rather than just a side dish. Another option, maybe you like a little bit of creamy. Who here thinks of sour cream usually when they think of potatoes? These comfort foods. Greek yogurt or yogurt is a great addition. Just last night when we were having a Mexican dish, I plopped some yogurt on top, and it was just like having sour cream, that same texture, that same tangy flavor. So there are ways that you can take a simple dish and expand it out to be more of a standalone meal. And finally, I will tell you, there are some ways to tweak your recipe. Maybe you're in a hurry. This whole roasting process took about 45 minutes. Sometimes you don't have that time, or you just don't have that patience, and that's okay too. And so in this instance, I microwaved just a tiny little potato. This will end up being my daughter's lunch. We pulled out her favorite bag of broccoli. So that potato was about 3 minutes. We had our microwave bag of broccoli, which is about 5 minutes. And then she could literally build her own. So she can sprinkle it on top. You could think of a potato bar. And Amy, do you want to jump in and tell a fun story about potato jackets that you had?
Yeah, so when we were going over this presentation last week and the recipes, this reminded me of something when I studied abroad when I was in college in England. The British love something called a jacket potato. And basically a jacket potato in the traditional sense is just a crispy potato like Dr. Luking was talking about, when you really get it in the oven for 45 plus minutes and the skin gets so nice and crispy, and that's the part that's so good for you too. But the English also, in like on street food and street vendors, they'll load up their jacket potatoes with different things like on a potato bar. So I remember we'd get it with baked beans and tuna and egg salad and all these different wild things. And I thought this could be the immune supporting jacket potato, where you figure out all these different ingredients that you've got in your pantry that we've been talking about today. for you to load your potato. And I'm really kind of salivating over here right now at home, thinking I think I'm going to make a potato for lunch.
You do deliveries. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
So,
Don't start that.
yeah. No, I think that's all we have. I have with this demonstration process for you, but just a reminder that variety is the spice of life. Because again, the question about cooking methods is a really important one, but also goes to show variety of cooking methods, not just the types of foods, but the variety of cooking methods. Also thinking about the textures or even the temperature. So combining a hot food with something cold can be appealing to a wider palate. Maybe it's pairing something crunchy with something soft. And a food like this, which cheesy potatoes to me sounds like comfort food, and it's amazing. And who doesn't want comfort food right now? But it's also a way to introduce a new food. So maybe you have chickpeas or a bean as a new addition to someone. Or it just makes it a little bit safer and less daunting if you know, like a child, for example, or an adult who's exploring new flavors and tastes, to make them feel more comfortable and confident in that I can sample this, but there's still some other things that I know that I'll like. So I will toss it back to anyone if there are questions, or Mindy, if you're closing us out.
Yeah, I think that's the end of what we have today. So if there are any questions, feel free to ask away. Hopefully you were able to take something away from this, or you feel a little bit more empowered to kind of get in the kitchen and actually see what you have in your pantry, and try to put together, those puzzle pieces, like Courtney shared, to have a wholesome and a balanced meal.
I want to thank Drs. Luking, Kostelik, and Norman Bergdorf for presenting for us today. Everything that you have shared with us, of course, is important information. And I've learned a few new things, so I hope everyone else has as well. I also want to thank all of you who joined us today. If you found something beneficial, you feel free to share those in the comments, and our specialist will be alerted if you have questions that you want to share. If you're watching at a later date, we will also try to get those answered right there on the Facebook Live chat. If you need additional information, we encourage you to reach out to your local county extension agent for Family and Consumer Science. While the office might be closed to foot traffic right now, they are all still working and are eager to help you find additional information. So reach out to them via email or telephone or text, or even find them on social media. So we thank you for your time today, and we hope you'll have a great week.
Family and Consumer Sciences Extension at the University of Kentucky. Our agents share research knowledge with individuals, families, and communities to improve quality of life. Building strong families, building Kentucky. It starts with us.